Well, my name is Justo Frutos. I was Brother Eliason's bishop, and I have some very fond memories of him. He was the candy man. He was the painter. He did some beautiful paintings, and I watched him very carefully, and I thought he can really contribute to the bishopric. So I called him to be my special assistant. There is no such a thing, but he was called to be a special assistant to the bishop.
I thought he was executive secretary or something. I knew he was working with you.
Yeah, he was. I called him to be my special assistant. And I know he liked to joke. So the first time that he was going to meet in our bishop meeting, it was a ward council meeting. And there were about 16 tables, 16 chairs around the room. And he came early and put a little board on each chair a piece of wood. And everybody came in and looked around, and I said, "What is this?" And nobody said anything. I had no idea what it was. And he was sitting on my side, and he said, "Today is a board meeting, isn't it?" And I said, "Oh boy, okay." And that was the beginning of our relationship there. And then we had a testimony meeting as a bishopric once a month. It was just us. And the first few times, he just listened. And then one time he bore his testimony and he said, "This calling has been the best thing that has ever happened to me." And I started crying. I've never seen him cry. And there was no joking. And it was just wonderful to watch him conduct priesthood meeting. Because I told him, "You're going to conduct priesthood meeting." And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, you will." And he did. And he grew. He grew spiritually. And then time passed, and he had that heart operation. And he never came out of it. And your mother asked me to come to the hospital. He said, "I think your friend is going to leave us." So I went and I asked her, "Do you mind if I give him a blessing?" And she said, "I'd like that." And so he was in a coma. He didn't know apparently what was going on. And I put my hands on his head and I started blessing him. And I noticed that tears were running down his face. His body was not responsive, but his spirit was just as vibrant as ever. And that was the last time I saw him in this life. And so that as a background is the way that the Lord kind of shaped me to be able to reach out to your dad. And I said, "There's something that needs to be done." Jack was not complete. He was good at his job, he was good at joking, he was good at giving candy, but he was not completed. And I thought and pondered a lot. And that's why he was called to be a special assistant to the bishop. And it was a great experience for him and for all of us in that group. He knew a lot of stories that we had in that. We called that San Juan bishopric office, we called it the Little Temple because a lot of very interesting things happened there. We had pictures put in there that kind of represented the whole plan of salvation. And so we gathered together quite often, just the small group there, and we talk. And there was no joking in him, a lot of listening. And that's why one day he said, "This is the best thing that has happened to me." And so, even though he was older than I was, I watched him grow into the man of Christ that he always needed to be. And he was very quiet, but he took everything in. And the men that were with us then, one was, the name was Richard Horton. He had been a mission president, bishop 3 times, and in the stake presidency in the Bonneville stake with most of the general authorities. And so when he would talk, he would share things, and I watched your dad just soaking everything in. So there was a lot of things that were influencing him. Yeah. We had a good time. But I watched him those last years. The joking went down. And again, I really thought that he turned himself into a man of Christ.
Our family came to Orange County September the 1st, 1961, and your family was here. Now that was even before you were even born, wasn't it, Adam?
Yep, that's right. One
Okay.
year before.
1 year
And
before.
I think my parents moved the year before you did, 1960, because I was
Okay.
born into the Hughes home,
All right.
but not much. Kelly wasn't. Kelly's only 2 years older. So you both came here almost the same time.
About the same time. In fact, Marilyn, my wife Marilyn, was Robin's laurel leader.
Oh my gosh, I didn't
When-
know that.
When we met in the schoolhouse, then we met in the synagogue, and then we built the building over there.
Yeah.
But the first thing it was Christmas, and it was really interesting because we met in the schoolhouse that they had their parties, their Christmas party, in a mortuary over on Beach Avenue or Beach Boulevard over there. And part of that, the entertainment, was Jack Eliason. And Jack did
Juggling.
the juggling.
Yeah.
And Bruce Carter worked for Shenango, China, and so he provided these plates, and these plates are very valuable now because they're keepsakes. In fact, this one is a very expensive set of plates, and there's 12 of them we have. But what he would do is he would juggle with these plates, and then all of a sudden, why, he'd drop one, and we thought, wow. But that's the way he was. And then he always had jokes. He always told jokes, and we wondered where in the world did he get all those strange jokes from. But he'd be the one that would laugh the loudest at his own jokes. And we didn't find out until after Jack passed away that who do you think got those jokes for him?
I don't know.
Your mother.
Oh, really?
And that's why he laughed too, is because they were funny jokes and everything else. Well, we became real close friends of that, and we had children the same age as Jack and you had, and so it put us real close family too. But then we had a lot of same interests. Jack was a great athlete. He played all the sports when he was growing up, and so that put us together. And then we had a friend by the name of Bob Williams, and Bob and Jack grew up together, and so that made, then we were the three Nephites, or whatever you want to call us.
And I remember you going early in the morning with my dad to Foothill High School and playing tennis before work. You guys all worked hard and early in the morning, and yet somehow you met there and played tennis regularly.
Well, the thing is I didn't know how to play tennis.
Oh, really?
Hands, but the thing is they always wanted me to go with them and play them, and we played doubles, and so Jack would and Bob would always choose me. and we'd play against Lloyd Rasmussen, President Rasmussen, and another party, and they'd say, I say, you know, I don't even have a racket. I don't know how to do this. He says, let me tell you what to do. You get up to that net, and when I serve and he knocks it back to you, you hit him. You mean with my racket? No, with a ball. And so the thing is we got started, and I hit him, and Bob and those guys were starting to laugh. He says, knock it off. Baron, what are you hitting me for? What do you got against me? Anyway, that was one of the crazy things that we did. And pretty soon, Rasmussen threw his racket down and walked and went home. But then we used to play golf together all the time too. And and the other thing that we'd do is that we would go to these different sporting events, and we never had tickets. But they said, don't worry about it, Baron, we're going to get in. And so between Jack and Bob, they knew how to scalp tickets, and we never missed going to a ball game. The Rams way back in those days, and all the other things. But the thing that really, I guess, the two things that I have that's very, very special is when Bob came to me after I was become a stake president, and he says, you know, Jack and Genevieve have all these children, and the guys have gone on missions and done all these things, and I didn't know this, but they haven't been to the temple. And I said, you sure? He says, yeah. But he says, I think we ought to have that our number one goal. And that was. And so we found out that, you know, Jack and Genevieve wanted to be perfect. And the only person they crucified, the only perfect person, and that's the Savior. And so we had some interviews and took care of whatever thing, all the things that was bothering them, both of them. And we had our temple night, and we filled the endowment rooms and the seating room when Jack and Genevieve was endowed and sealed in the temple. So that's one of the things that I've always, and of course, this picture here is some of the crazy things we used to do. And
show that picture for the camera.
okay, and this is
That's fun.
and this was a picture that they had a party, and the parties were fun parties that we used to have as adults, and everybody showed, and we'd dress up. And this night it was the Roaring 20s, and so, and he did perform that night, but this was the way we looked that night. So this has always been very special. Okay, now we tried to get Jack to have that operation many, many times, and we'd go play golf, and then he would disappear around behind a tree, and I was wondering what in the world. Well, finally I found out that he was taking those nitro pills, and so then Lloyd and I went on our missions, and we came back, and he says, and then started playing, and I found him sitting by a tree. He couldn't hardly get up even. And we gave him a priesthood blessing and over to the office, and then he went to Long Beach to have that operation. I don't know how old you were, but anyway.
1996.
Okay.
So I was in my, I think, late 30s.
Right, it was 1996. And so the operation was supposedly been successful. They had taken him, they were going back to the room, and he had another heart attack. So they went back, and at this time then, that day or the day after, why you as a family were there in Long Beach. He was in the other room attached to a life support, and you're wondering what to do, whether to leave him on it or pull it off. And of course, if you pulled it off, and the doctor says, then he'd be gone. But if you want to take a few more days, you didn't need to hurry or whatever. And so we were all in that room together. I don't know if you remember us all being in there, and all your family was in there. And so anyway, it came to me, why don't I go in, and because I'd been with Bob just before he passed away down to his home to turn him over with Darlene Williams, and I never hardly got outside before Bob passed away, and I thought, and that came to my mind, and I had the opportunity to speak at Bob Williams's funeral, and all of a sudden that was starting to come back to me. Well, gee, why don't I go in and talk to Jack? I don't know whether he'd hear me or what. And so I asked if I could go in, and he was there on a life support and everything, and it was working. And so I, told Jack I'm here, and I just like to. I don't know whether you can hear me or where you're at or what's taking place and with you, and how far whether you're coming back or whether you're going or what. But I'd like to talk with you for a moment. And I says, you're probably aware that your family, if you're not, I'll tell you that your family's in the other room, and they're praying and trying to find out whether they should stop the life support or take some more time and do whatever needs to be done. And I says, Jack, we've had a lot of great times and a lot of things, and if I can make a suggestion, it would be, if you know what's going to take place or is starting to place, or it has already, that if you have anything to say about it or any part of the decision, that it would be nice if you made it. And so, knowing the eternal scheme and being with the Spirit on the other side, if that's the case, to know what to do. And so I then expressed my love and a lot of things, and I had a few laughs. He didn't laugh though, but I can tell you he did. But anyway, then I went and said goodbye to the family and you and in that room, and then I left. Well, I didn't hardly get outside, and I don't know who called me, but they said that that Jack had passed away. So those are the two special spiritual experiences that I don't know if anybody else had those. And you've got a lot of experiences that people will talk about, but those are the two. And then when your time came for your mother, why she was in a coma going back and forth. And I had a chance to give her a priesthood blessing at the end.
I remember the beach parties that we would have.
Oh, that's the other one. That's the one I'm missing. Bob and you and your family. The Williamses and you and then Carters and every time one of them was going on a mission, they'd jump off that pier.
That's right. Do it all the time.
Okay, now I'll tell you what happened. That night, Bob Williams brings a whole container of golf balls. And so I went, what in the world are you going to do that? And for about a half hour or so, we took and got our drivers out, and we were driving golf balls out into the ocean. And I cannot. But that's right. That was really one
Great times.
great times we had.